Dusty's a name you also often hear bandied about in that fashion, though you could also make the argument he made a ton of money. So, I don't know, does he fall in?
Short of Hulk Hogan, until Dusty basically retired in 1988, he drew more money in America than any other wrestler did, bar none. So, did Dusty put himself in a good spot? He put himself in the spot he should have been in. He was not a first or second match guy. He was a main eventer. He might have not looked like a main eventer. He might have not wrestled like a main eventer, but he was a main eventer. He drew money. And like I say, other than Hogan, I would say, you know, with pay-per-views and the insane things going on today, back in the day when the tickets were $6 a piece and, you know, you worked in the same city 52 weeks a year,
right.
You know, nobody today could do that. They would be out of business in a month. Nobody could go to Tampa every Tuesday, Miami every Wednesday, Jacksonville every Thursday, Fort Lauderdale every Friday. Saturday was either Sarasota, Lakeland, or Bayfront Center, and then every Sunday was in Orlando. And we sold them out 15 years every night. No, they can't. They might wrestle in Florida twice a year.
Yeah. Okay, before let's call it proposed merger for now. And
okay.
We'll delve a little bit in a minute of Crockett and Championship Wrestling from Florida. We had national expansion with WWEF in around '84. Were you guys feeling the heat from the national push that was happening in New York?
No, not yet. No. They, I guess maybe Vince Jr. knew that his dad and my dad were good friends. My dad was still alive. He respected his father's friends, so until my dad died, then he kind of stayed out of Florida. He didn't come down and mess around or do anything.
Interesting.
And then when my dad passed away in '85, that's when, and my dad had several partners, and he had some personal issues, and had kind of let other people handle the business. And then once he died, the brain of all the kids was gone. And the kids were running around arguing with each other and couldn't make a decision. And this guy owned 10%, and that guy had 15%, and this guy had 5%, and that guy had 20%, and oh, I own more than you. I mean, it crumbled from within. And Vince coming in was just, it was going to happen.
Right.
You know, it was going to happen.
Talk to me about Dusty's departure right about this time to the Carolinas and Crockett.
It broke my dad's heart.
Yeah.
Because my dad had created the American... Dusty created the American dream. My dad gave him the vehicle to be the American dream. And then helped him and supported him and gave him a percentage of Championship Wrestling from Florida. Gave him a percentage of the Orlando Sports Complex. Gave him a lot of things to keep him in Florida. If he wanted to go to Dallas and wrestle against the Von Erichs on a Saturday night, cool. If he wanted to go to the Garden and work against Superstar Graham on a Monday night, fine. But to leave the territory, it was because the whole territory was built around Dusty, Barry, Lex Luger, I mean a lot of guys, but Dusty. And then when Dusty left, he took Barry, Ron Bass, Luger left right after that. I mean, he like took the whole territory with him.
What were the circumstances surrounding his leaving? What did he say to your dad? What did he say? It was just all about
money.
Just about
money. Jimmy said, you know, a good week somebody in Florida could make $1,000, $1,200, whatever. Jimmy said, I'll pay you double. I'll pay you $2,500 a month. I'll pay you $3,000 a month. Well, Dad couldn't get upset with the guys for leaving because Jimmy had offered them so much money because we're all here to earn a living and support our families and pay our bills and all that kind of stuff. But there you had Vince Sr. and Jimmy Crockett, who had never been in the ring. They had never done anything. They both saw, oh my God, my fathers were millionaires, and Vince ran the New York area, and Jimmy Crockett's dad ran the Carolina area, and they were left with millions of dollars, and they both said, gee, if we take over the world, how much money can we make? So that's how all that came about.
Did you really feel that, or did your dad feel also that it was a threat to the survival of CWF when those guys were going? Did you think you could get a new infusion of talent? Or
No.
did you see it as the end?
No, because it takes too long to get someone over. It takes too long. And whoever we would have created, they would have took them.
Right.
They were using us as a training school. So there was once the whole crew goes, then if it takes you 2 years to create another star, then as soon because we knew Vince and Jimmy was just sitting looking, listening. Oh, there's a guy down in Florida. They trained him. He would train with Matsuda. He did this. He did that. Whatever. Get his phone number.
Yeah.
Whoosh, gone.
You nurture the crop and they take it out of the field. Yeah.
So yeah, Dad kind of knew that it was the beginning of the end. As once, and that really didn't happen until he died. I think he knew, because he knew things way before they ever happened. He was a visionary of the future in the wrestling business. I mean, Dad's been dead 25 years, and 20 years before that, he was preaching to all the guys. The wrestling business, as we know, is going to change. There's going to be national TV shows. This is coming. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. He really didn't know how. He didn't know the form, but he knew that a guy could wrestle in Tampa and be seen all over the world.
Right.
Where before, you could wrestle in Florida for a year or two. They weren't seeing you in Georgia, and then you could go another place for a couple of years. It was easy to work 15, 20 years, work your way around America, have a good career. But then once WCW started, Ted Turner, once Channel 17 started, and the guy was on Channel 17 for a year, then he was dead in the world. Because everybody had seen everything he could do.
So there was no light at the end of the tunnel, really.
No.
So
Not in
a
Dad's
merger
eyes.
of some kind would probably have been inevitable, or an outright buyout. What were you hoping for? What was Dad maybe?
This Dad had been dead for a couple of years, and I had taken a year or so off, and then the partners asked me to come back and try to help, and I said, guys, there's no talent. I mean, you can't run all these towns and these big major buildings week in and week after with no talent. So then Dusty called me and said, Mike, would you work with Jimmy Crockett? And I said,
even prior to Crockett, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Okay.
I just don't want to get there yet. While your dad's still alive, is there any attempt to call Vince and say, can we do some kind of agreement?
No.
Nothing.
No. Because we were still doing business. Dusty left, and toward the end of the year, middle of the year, end of the year, Dad died January of '85. So there was only a couple month period when Dusty and everybody left, that Dusty and them left, Dad died in the story.
Right.
So then we struggled along with different things and, tried to keep it going. And then we created Lex Luger. And as soon as he was making money, Vince took him. Every time we created anybody that could draw us money, Vince would take him. Well, then Jimmy had been going back and forth with Vince. So then Dusty had Jimmy call me and said, would you work? No, Dusty said, would you work with Jimmy? I said, in what way? Well, if he sends talent down to your towns, and we'll put our guys and your guys, and then will you pay the wrestlers that Jimmy sends in, and then you keep the money for your wrestlers, and then split the profit after that or whatever. And I was sure, because he had all the talent. We didn't have any talent. Well, that lasted about a week.
So it was supposed to be a true merger, an old talent swap, like the old days.
Yes.
And the money split down the middle.
Correct.
What happened?
Jimmy, after about the first 2 weeks, nobody in Florida was being used on the cards. Jimmy was flying everybody in on his personal jets. He was charging the Florida office like $400 a person airfare, and then paying them outrageous money. So basically, he just came in and took all the scraps and killed all the towns and just took everything and went back to Carolina.
In an effort to take the territory over, or just to squash you?
He didn't get it. He was a little chubby kid that had watched his dad in the wrestling business, and he didn't understand it. He just didn't understand that things they did other places, you couldn't come to Florida and do that. The wrestling fans weren't going to put up with it. Either they saw quality wrestling and matches and TVs they liked and all that kind of stuff, or because then it's when they started coming in like not running regular towns, and they just discombobulized the whole thing because they were growing into a new era. The old era of weekly wrestling and all that stuff was over in their eyes. They didn't want to do that.
At any point, do you or any of the other partners interject and say, wait, you're stepping on this. You're doing this wrong.
I did.
Yeah.
But who was I? You know, he had the money, he had the jets, he had the talent, he had everybody. I went to a lawyer in Atlanta to see if we could sue him for, I don't know, there was some kind of word for when somebody knowingly comes in and works with a company and bankrupts the company, knowing that that's what he was going to do. Right. But it never, you know, it's a wrestling business, you know. How can you say one, you know, how could one wrestler sue another one for beating him up? Yeah, so I mean, one guy puts somebody else out of business and blatantly lies to him, blatantly doesn't do anything, blatantly breaks all the rules of the business decision, and then just takes all he can and leaves with it.
While this is working before the end, what's the creative structure like? Who's making the decisions? Who's putting who over? Who's putting straps?
Jimmy and Dusty was booking the territory.
You didn't have any say of how they were using the guys?
No, like I said, when my dad died, he was my best friend, you know, and I had a deep crash for a few years. Yeah. So I would try to get stuff together, and when Dusty called me and, you know, Jimmy, and I figured, well, the Dream would be back working with everything, and Jimmy and I had an understanding. At that time, I kind of thought people were basically honest. Well, they're not. Right. For the most part, they're not. So that was just my fault for just the mental attitude I was in.
Did you, maybe you don't now, hold anything against Dusty for the last few months of your father's life?
You know, I thought about that a lot, and Dusty and I are good friends today, and we've been in business together. I called him today. I said, hey, why aren't you up here? How are they going to talk about championship wrestling from Florida and you're not here, you know? And yeah, we've talked about it a couple times, and, you know, like we've said, business is business, and, you know, they all had opportunities. I mean, I found Magnum TA in San Antonio, Texas. He walked duck-footed, but he had it. He had the it factor. Yeah. You can't teach it, and you can't learn it. You got to have it. I called Dad. I said, Dad, I've met this guy out here. He's got it. He walks funky. He's whatever. But I said, every club we go in, women are all over him. This, that. I mean, I watched him for 2 nights. I said, we got to get him to Florida. So we brought him to Florida. He was there for about a year, and then he was one of the ones, Dusty, Terry Allen, Barry, Ron Bass, whatever. Terry signed the contract. He was the first guy to sign a contract with Jimmy for, I want to say, 150 grand a year, guarantee. That was in 85, 84, 85. It was 84. He left in 84 because when he came to my dad's funeral in 85, I wanted to sneak up behind him and hit him over the head with a... I didn't need to, though. Car wreck got him. Yeah. Karma's evil. Karma's evil.
Where do you, I mean, the human mind is very complex, and to say there's any one reason for adults' decisions to do things to others or to themselves would be silly, but if we had to, you had to speculate on a percentage where Dusty's decision put your father in a certain state to make a decision that he made, what percentage would you give the Dusty decision?
15%.
Okay.
15. A lot of things were happening in Dad's life. He was 55. He wasn't wrestling anymore. His girlfriend said she didn't want to see him anymore. A friend that he trusted, he tried to get out of the wrestling business and get into the real world. He had never been in the real world. Never been in the real world. So a guy zinged him for like 500 grand. Dusty and all the guys that he had trusted and believed in and everything bailed on him. He could see the wrestling business change. He could see his whole world wasn't going to be what it had been. So there was like maybe 6 big nails in the coffin. Right. It wasn't one thing. Right.
It's sometimes attributed very heavily to Dusty, so I wanted to give an opportunity for you.
But Dad was a big boy. I mean, he fired. He didn't care who was on top. If they broke his rules, he fired them.
Right.
So, I mean, he wasn't... He just had a lot of things. At 55, you'll get there someday, but your life, your brain starts changing. You, especially as an athlete, oh my God, You know, an athlete, when they hit that 50, between 50 and 55, and you can't do what you've done your whole life, and people aren't coming up and asking for your autographs, and the girls aren't saying, hey baby, take me out tonight, and this and this and this, and you can't bench press 500 anymore, and you can't wrestle an hour anymore, and you can't do all these things, it weighs heavily on your brain. It really, really does. And so he was just going through these stages of being an athlete all his life, being the leader of wrestling. Basically, he could reach out and touch people in Japan, Australia, Hawaii, all over America, Canada. He had power, huge power, and for years and years and years. And he never misused it. He was always good to everybody. And when all that, he saw his life crumbling, and you know, it's just the way it was. And he didn't want to be out there without wrestling.
Gotcha.
He could have created another Dusty Rhodes. He just didn't have time. He was tired.